I'm still listening to my book. I've got about 23 hours to go. Deep Time Dreaming, which is about Indigenous Australia. I'm in an Indigenous Australia phase. And I'm really liking it. I'm learning a lot. And even though some of it is a clanger for me, at least, occasionally, and structurally even, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to all work for you to get a hell of a lot out of it. So I don't mind that. Same goes for when I'm listening to a book. That's the way we do it these days, about anything. I've listened to a lot of things about Rome and read a lot of things about Rome, and a lot of it makes me go, oh God, that is total propaganda. One thing about the book, it's academics speaking with themselves. But then again, academics, especially when it comes to archaeology and all that sort of thing, well, who are you going to listen to? Someone who's not an academic? Speaking of that, one clanger in the book, all right, it's archaeologists, but yeah, it's essentially built around archaeology, this book. There are other ones that are built around, there are other Indigenous books about Indigenous Australia that are built around anthropology, for example, and oral history, for example. There are even some things that are written and made and spoken by Indigenous people themselves, but we don't listen to them very often. I must admit I don't, But this book, oh look, I suppose you have to read all the books to get a bit of a cross-section, but this one is fairly academic, but it does mention interactions with Indigenous people. It talks a lot about, most of the archaeologists in the past and the people studying Indigenous Australia and all that sort of thing, it becomes clear that they're doing all of that without actually asking any Indigenous people, They're, investigating shell middens and all that sort of thing. And, I wonder what this could mean, blah, 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 do some tests, do a bit of carbon dating and all that sort of thing. But they're not listening. There's an Indigenous mob just sitting over there, and they don't even walk over there and ask them, do you know anything about this shell midden? And they probably would have picked up something. But there were plenty of things about that shell midden that those guys over there wouldn't have a clue about. Even though it's their shell midden, they wouldn't have a clue, Is it 10,000 years old? Is it 5,000 years old? Does it go back 20,000 years, 30,000 years, 40,000 years, 60,000 years? They wouldn't have a clue. But they'd also say, we don't care either, because, when it comes to deep time dreaming, we don't care about the deep time bit, we care about the dreaming bit. You're trying to find out things about things that we don't care about. It doesn't matter, It doesn't matter, But anyway, on one occasion, and certain names keep popping up: Rhys Jones, Mulvaney, McBride, all these names. It's a very Eurocentric look at Indigenous Australia, this book, which is okay. I'll try and find a book written by an Indigenous bloke next, All right. But he did, one of these guys recounted having gone to a dig, and he'd got a lift of an Indigenous bloke, and he had said, I'm off for a dig, and it was a very famous moment. I think it was to do with Mungo Man, actually. Mungo Man. Apparently that was named after a church, after a saint back in Europe somewhere, Mungo, Saint Mungo. And there's a Mungo Cathedral or something over in Europe somewhere, France maybe. And but there was a lot of debate about what Mungo meant, because whoever named Mungo Lake, where Mungo Man and Mungo Woman were found, I think didn't leave any clues as to where he got the name. And a lot of people saying, that derives from, this is a bit like the Greeks, kimono, that comes from the Greek, blah blah blah, all things come from Greek, so this there was a little bit of controversy as to where the word Mungo came from, and people were saying, no, that derives from an indigenous ceremony, blah blah blah, whatever. And then someone else said, there is a Saint Mungo in France. No, it's not that. It's something to do with indigenous for sure, It goes back 40,000 years, that word, all that sort of stuff. And then they went to a house where this archaeologist or whoever had found, was staying when he found the lake, and there was a picture of Mungo Cathedral pinned to the wall. All right. Anyway, so this archaeologist had got a lift. I think what had happened was, I can't remember. I mix up all the stories, but I'm more like an indigenous person. It's the essence of what the vibe is. It's not all about getting everything right. None of my episodes bother to get anything right, really, because it doesn't matter. I really think that, you can listen to, you wouldn't, but you could listen to my last 450 episodes, which is how many I've done roughly, I think, or is it 250? No, 300. No, I think it's about. Is it right? I think it's about 450, and I say 1066, or maybe it was 1166. So really, who cares? Norman conquest, all the Celts went up on a little hill, and they were able to hold off the Normans, who had superior fighting equipment and all that sort of thing, and training. But they knew and the Celts were stuck up there because they had the height advantage, but they knew if they got down on the flat, we're not talking about Normans. But this guy, he went out to the Mungo Plain, I think it was, or maybe it was some other dig, and an indigenous taxi driver took him out there. I doubt that there was a meter in the thing, and he said to the indigenous taxi driver, "Isn't it funny? Like only 10 years ago, this was back in 1971 or something, or 1972 or something. Isn't it funny? 10 years ago, to the best of our knowledge, Indigenous Australians were here in Australia only for a couple of thousand years. And then 5 years ago, the penny dropped, more like 10,000 years, back in the Pleistocene period, Ice Age and all that sort of stuff. And then, another dig, and suddenly you guys go back 30,000 years. And then right now with Mungo Man, 40,000 years. And he said, and my driver leaned back and smiled, and he said, yes, well, it doesn't stop there. It just goes back and back and back forever. And that was the end of that chapter. I was listening to this book, and that was the comment that I was left with. I was supposed to ponder that. It just goes back. So we Europeans had discovered it went back 10,000 years, 20,000 years, 40,000 years, and I think we found out it's gone back 60,000 years, maybe a little more. But anyway, just this image of this bloke leaning back, going, "Yes, you're slowly learning. It goes back and back and back forever." Now, if I was sitting in because I'm very Euro and I'm into linear time, not all that, made up time. No, it's not made up time. It's imaginative time, But anyway, it's cyclical and all that sort of thing. Anyway, if I was sitting there, and I would have looked over him, He said, "You dickhead." "No, it doesn't. It can't. We were monkeys back then." What is a monkey? We don't have monkeys in Australia. But I would have said that. I said, well, no, it doesn't. I mean, have you dreaming? We're talking deep time here. Don't say it goes back and back and back forever. You can say it goes round and round and round in circles if you want, but it doesn't go back and back and back forever. But the point is, these are the little clangers in books like this, where they don't resolve it. They leave you hanging. And you're supposed to ponder that. But there's nothing to ponder. The fact of the matter is, even if you're an Indigenous Australia, it doesn't go back and back and back forever, except in myth. But even then, it doesn't even go back and back forever, because it's you're talking dreaming by then. You're not talking about linear time anyway, so it doesn't go back and back and back forever, no matter which way you slice it. So that taxi driver was just plain wrong. But not only did the guy in the passenger seat not call him out on that, well, that was probably smart, because the guy probably would have kicked him out and he would have had to walk the rest of the way and died in the desert 4 days later. Okay, so I know why he didn't challenge the taxi driver, but this book, Deep Time Dreaming, it should have said, this book should have had in the narrative, and then he reports, the taxi driver said, self-satisfied, already know everything about all this sort of stuff that you're just slowly catching up on, but we know everything about it already, which they don't. They had no way of carbon dating, for example. But they know a lot of things that are very important that we don't know about. So, but the point is, it reminds me of Christians actually sometimes, and religious people and all that sort of thing. Sometimes, science discovers new things and they say, "Oh, yes, we were waiting for you to catch up on information we already knew because it was in the Bible." No, it wasn't. And Chinese medicine and all that sort of stuff, and traditional indigenous medicines and all that sort of thing, and they say, and then science proves some Chinese medicine correct, and then it enters into Western medicine, because that's the way Western medicine works. We grab all the Chinese remedies and all that sort of stuff, and all the remedies we can out of the Amazon deep forest and all that sort of thing, and everywhere else, and we put them through trials and we test them, and then if they come up trumps, then we call them Western medicine. But you get these people, and we test some ancient remedy, and it comes up trumps, and we go, beauty. All right, we'll use that. Yes, says some hippie somewhere, New Age hippie, who's only into that sort of medicine, traditional ancient medicine, which was so wonderful that, everyone had a life expectancy of about 12. About 32, and they, in a very self-satisfied way, they go, yes, Western medicine, we were waiting for you to catch up on information we already knew. But they failed to mention that not only did we test that thing, and that one came up trumps, good, but we tested 80 other things, and all those things were wrong. They don't mention that. They just say, see, that proves Chinese medicine. We've known it all along. In fact, we said that medicine was efficacious in every way, and you wouldn't believe it, and you had to do all your trials, didn't you? Yeah, we did, because that's how we found out that the other 80 things that you said were correct, that's how we found out that those were wrong. We found out, you got one right and 80 wrong, and you're kind of washing away all those things anyway, and focusing on this one, and oh my God, and but it's not so much the insult to logic, it's the self-satisfied expression on the face when it comes to maybe someone who's into ancient herbal remedies or something, or the way a rhinoceros horn will make you more virile and all that sort of thing, or a Christian who says the answers are in the Bible in code, and when you discovered E equals MC squared, we knew that all along. No, you didn't. You didn't. You just didn't, and you were you had all sorts of wickety whack ideas about all sorts of things. Yeah, you thought God was sending the lightning bolts down from the clouds and all that sort of stuff, you know. You did. Anyway, but this indigenous guy, you know, like how he was reported anyway, it's a bit like that. Yes, we knew this all along, that we go back and back and back forever. Yeah, you're only slowly catching up. You've worked out that we go back and back and back to 40,000 years, or 60,000 years by now, or 80,000 years by now. Yeah, and the way this book reported this guy, it was this self-satisfied thing, just like humans do, you know. Yes, you're slowly getting there. You worked out that we go back 10,000 years. You worked out we go back 20,000 years. You worked out that we go back 40,000 years. As your education progresses and you slowly catch up to us, you will see that we go back and back and back forever. No, we won't. Because we know at some point we were monkeys. And anyway, there was no one in Bali back then anyway, so how did you even get here? Oh, we came in a bark canoe from Africa, from Ethiopia. We took a train to Djibouti and we jumped on some ocean currents and we caught the roaring 40s or whatever it is, and we came across to Perth and went up to Western Australia to make it look like that we came from Timor, and then started coming down, and we've been here forever and ever and ever. No, you haven't. But the book's fantastic. I'm loving it. I mean, I'm looking forward to the next 23 hours of it.